Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 685. I had the white pieces and started off with e4. Opponent went c5. So we get the Sicilian defense. I play the normal move, knight f3, and now he goes e6, which is the third choice here after d6 and knight c6. And introduces a different flavor of Sicilians. A lot of these will sometimes, these e6 Sicilians will sometimes transpose into French defense type of structure if black plays d5 and white plays d4. We get something that looks a lot like a French defense. But it doesn't have to go that way. And a lot of the interesting lines avoid the d5 move. Anyway, I go d4 immediately to open up the center. He takes. Take back. And yeah, so we've got an open Sicilian, and a6 indicates that he's playing the con Sicilian. The immediate knight c6 is a little more popular. That's the Taimanov Sicilian, also a respectable way to play, but a6 is an interesting way, and also the way that I've been playing. So I played the bishop d3 move. You can also just play knight c3. That's a fine move as well, as it is against many Sicilians. And you can even play c4 and try and go for a Maraxi bind, but I guess black is okay. I don't see that so often when I play that as black. But bishop d3 is an interesting move. It sets up a different kind of position because you don't often get to play this move. The bishop is blocking the defense of the knight, and normally there's a knight here on c6, and so this knight would be hanging. But in this case, because black is playing the con Sicilian, that's not an issue. So the way the con normally continues from here is with queen to c7. That's the most typical. There are other ways to play the con Sicilian, but that's the most typical way. These other moves, and that's the way I've been playing it, these are ways to transpose back into different kinds of Sicilians, like knight. Yeah, I'm not sure about bishop c5 and knight f6. They look like the top two choices. Knight c6 would transpose into a Taimanov. G6 would be some kind of dragon setup, it looks like. And I'm not too sure about these bishop c5 and knight f6 moves. Look a little bit funny to me. But anyway, the queen c7 is the main idea here. So b6, this is setting up, I guess, a hedgehog formation. Although normally black would play with d6 here and bring the knight out this way in a hedgehog. So this is some unique hybrid because black doesn't play d6. We're not quite out of the opening book. Let's see, I castled here. He played bishop b7, and I went king h1. So that gets us out of the opening book. Looking at this position with the chess engine, it's interesting, f4 is given as a move. I was playing king h1 so I could prepare f4. Looking at this with the chess engine, it looks like c4 is a good move here, and that might be something I should try if I remember. I think now that I'm looking at this, I think I've faced this position before, but I always forget what I intend to play. I don't see it that often. It's a pretty rare line. So by the time I see it the second time, I've already forgotten what I intended to play. Okay, so after king h1, we're already out of the opening book. But no big harm has been done. I think d5 is a little bit suspicious. Like I said, d6 is probably a little more logical, going for the hedgehog setup. d5, it's rare that black would want to open things up when he's behind in development like this. He can't castle. He's several moves away from castling. He's only got one piece developed. He's played nothing but pawn moves, whereas I've already castled and I've got two pieces out. So normally this would put black at some risk. But looking at the chess engine, it seems like there was no big way to refute this kind of play. Chess engine says just developing with knight c3 is probably the best continuation. And the way I play it actually, let's back up. The way I played it, I took the pawn, and this actually gives black a little something. If he could take with the queen, that's setting up some threats that I have to deal with. It's curious. There's a couple different ways to defend. I would probably just play knight f3, get the knight out of trouble, and block. But you can also play the move pawn to f3 because the knight really can't be taken. There's a bishop check there that wins the queen. So the knight is sort of protected, protected indirectly. So you could just play f3 there. But in any case, it seems like black is equal after that. Bishop d5, white still has some advantage, but not a whole lot. And particularly after I drop my knight back to f3, it's basically an even game. So let's continue. I mentioned in, oh, he played knight f6, yeah. Yeah, you can see now he's got a couple pieces out. He still hasn't castled, but, you know, he's got time, it appears, to get his house in order. Let's back up. He went knight f6. Yeah, I guess he's getting his kingside pieces developed, and that makes a lot of sense. I mentioned in the previous video, in the comment on it, that the description rather, that there were some mistakes in this game. I wasn't counting any of these moves. These are the sort of normal things that happen in a game where two players are not masters. You know, you don't get the perfect moves all the time. The mistakes are coming up though. Let's see. I go knight c3, king is bishop, bishop back to b7. I develop my bishop to g5. These are all okay moves. Bishop e7, queen e2, just kind of logical development. He castles. I go rook a to d1, and putting my rook opposite his queen, asking him where he wants to place the queen. He puts the queen over here on c7. I play h3, and yeah, I guess that stops him from hopping in here and ganging up on my h2 square. Let's see, he goes knight bd7. And I went a4. So a4 is a little bit of a mistake. I guess it's still not one of the blunders I was referring to in the description, but it seems like after that, up to this point, it's been about even, and after this a4 move, it seems like black has a little something here. So a4 and in particular b4 are just not good moves. Yeah, the chess engine wants to play here with knight e4, which was something, I think I thought about this, but it seems to lead to a lot of exchanges. So, you know, it's hard to see much coming out of this. Maybe, you know, it's just the kind of position where white can't get much. So sometimes you just have to settle. So a4, you know, I was thinking of pushing the pawn forward and trying to soften up his queenside pawns, but really all I end up doing is creating weaknesses. Let's see, he goes knight c5, which is a good move, hitting my bishop, hitting the pawn, which is defended at the moment, but the bishop has no good squares to go to, so I can't really save that bishop. So I played b4, and so that's the first of the mistakes, and actually he reacts to it correctly. Let's see, what is the chess engine? The chess engine wants to go bishop to c4. Yeah, I didn't really think about this. I was thinking, well, the bishop is protected here by the queen, and it puts it on a different diagonal. Yeah, and gets it away from the knight. So that's probably the best move here. Okay, but b4 is a definite blunder, so that's the first of them that I was referring to. An outright mistake, because he can just win a pawn here, and he starts out correctly. He takes, I take back, and then he could just take, right? There's nothing defending that b4 pawn. So that's why pushing the pawn to b4 was a big mistake here, because he can move the knight with tempo, exposing the pawn to an attack. I have no time to defend it. So it just b4 just loses a pawn. So that's my mistake. And his mistake is he didn't take it back right away. Now he doesn't have to. It turns out these rook moves are pretty forcing. I have to respond to them. So let's see. I played rook to d1, lining up the rooks. He traded. I took back. Now this rook d8 is not a forcing move. So this is his last chance right here. He should have grabbed that pawn, and he just stays. He's a pawn up for nothing. Instead he played here. I traded, and he took with the queen, and then I dropped my bishop back to e3, attacking his pawn, but leaving my pawn hanging. And when he takes the pawn, he hits my knight, which is loose. So it's not like I'll have time to take his pawn. It looks like I'm meeting a threat with another threat, but you have to meet a threat with a bigger threat. And this is meeting a threat with a lesser threat. It doesn't work. So bishop e3 is a mistake. I need to play b5 or something like that. Just get that pawn out of trouble. Okay, so b3. But he didn't take advantage of his opportunity, so his move, knight to d5, is also a mistake, allowing me to trade. And then I go knight e5, which is, I don't know if that's an outright mistake, but I probably should have just taken the pawn over here on a6. now that I have the chance. His mistake, by the way, he could have taken with the queen and held on to the pawn, and my pawn is still hanging, but I have time to defend it. So anyway, it's like we're both playing without paying attention to the pawns over here on the queen side. Although at some point it seems like we wake up and start taking them. But anyway, kind of silly. So he took with the bishop, leaving his a pawn hanging, and I didn't take it. I played knight e5, and now he finally takes my b pawn, and I take his a pawn. And so so neither of us took pawns at the times when it might have given us an advantage. And so it's about even. And black still has an okay game here. Although, well, actually black has an advantage with accurate play. I mean, there's black has the bishop pair, so from a material point of view, there's some prospects for black. But he has a weak back rank, and so it's kind of surprising. The chess engine line is queen h4, just allowing the check on the back rank, check, and bringing the bishop back. Normally you don't want to allow your bishop to be pinned like that, but queen h4 had a threat because his other bishop is pinning my g-pawn, so he's threatening to take here on h3, so I have to move my king to unpin. And then I guess there's no more mileage to be got from the pin on the bishop. I suppose I could try something like oh, it's not my move here. It's black's move. Okay, I was going to say if I had the move here, it seems like I would try and increase the pressure, but I just played king g1. Yeah, so he can play queen e4 here, setting up the mate threat and hitting my knight. So the knight has to drop back, so I don't have time to pile up the pressure on his bishop. And then he can even grab the a pawn and come out a little better. I don't know. This is still a bit. I mean, it was a half a pawn advantage according to the chess engine for black. Black's position is still a little bit awkward with this pin on the back rank, so not entirely clear. But well, bishop c5 actually is the final blunder, the losing move of the game. It only takes. I guess, well, there was a famous quote that the winner of the chess game is the person who made the second to last mistake. And so this is the last mistake, and it actually does lose because he just gives me another pawn here. I take, he takes, and then queen to b5. And, well, I mean, it's not just a case of giving up that pawn. He could try and hold on to it with queen c5, but then I start pushing this a pawn. So really it's a combination of threats. I have this advanced passed pawn here, and he can't seem to hold everything together. Let's see. He could have tried h5. That's the chess engine's top choice, giving an outlet for the king, and but he played c4, and that's just, I can just take that pawn, and after these trades I have two passed pawns and a queen to help them to score, and his king is far away from the action. So there's actually no hope at this point. Might seem like a small edge with queen still on the board, but my king is pretty safe as long as he can't find some perpetual check against my king. I'm able to march these pawns down with the help of my queen. And so the rest of the game, the first part of that game was somewhat sad. Well, I guess the middle part. The opening was okay. The middle part was sad. And this part is okay. Play this part all right. And just holding on to my pawn. And then finally I get to this key b7 square where I'm guarding against checks on this diagonal, and I can promote the pawn. And there's nothing that black can do to stop it. So he resigned at this point. So anyway, interesting game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.